Hi, everyone. Just want to thank you for attending today's presentation with Catherine Flax, the new CEO of Zefiro Methane. And we're just going to take a couple minutes to let some more people in before we start. We have almost everybody. And so what we'll do first is Neil Simon, Chairman and CEO of Investor Cube, is going to say a few words, an introduction, and then we will be handing it over to Catherine to provide an update. We will also be doing a live Q&A session as well. So feel free to email your questions to info@investor3.ca, or you can ask them directly in the Q&A section of the webinar, and we will be addressing those after the brief update from Catherine. And so at that point, I will turn this over to Neil, and just so everyone is aware that this call is being recorded, and we will be presenting the recording to everybody once this is done, and we'll have it edited and sent out to everybody. So with that, I will hand it over to Neil. Neil, thank you very much.
And Jen, thank you very much. And good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or maybe some cases, good evening. First and foremost, thank you very much for attending today's webinar with Zefiro Methane Corp with our new CEO, Catherine Flax. Hello, Catherine. It's a pleasure to have you on board. We're going to keep this in my numerous conversations with Catherine, since getting to know her. And I do know quite a lot about Miss Catherine, because as most of you probably know, I've been working with Josh Crum at ABAX for well over 5 years. I've worked with Wes Fulford, Michael Costa at Base Carbon for years. Catherine is chairman of Base. She's on the board of ABAX. And the good thing, and this is such a great thing for me, Catherine, and I'll tell everybody, because a lot of things have happened. As you know, Zefiro, and the stock is now down at 30 cents. It's been a lot of, lack of a better term, funky stuff going on. I didn't know where the company was going. A lot of us were confused.
Sure.
And then seeing, now I knew Catherine was on the board of Zefiro, but when I saw the CEO announcement, you guys can imagine, first thing I did do was call Josh and Wes and ask those guys the respect this woman has. And Catherine, I don't want you to broaden that smile, but one, the woman can execute. The respect that she's earned from, these are my peers, these are my biggest clients that I respect the most, was a great feeling. As you know, I'm a shareholder, and obviously I'm not doing very well with the stock, because I know a lot of us aren't. But that was probably one of the nice things that's happened to me in a long time, was seeing again, I call small caps, these are companies with bumps along the road.
Yeah.
Zefiro, unfortunately, has had quite a few bumps. It's a bit scary for all of us, but there is a happy ending, I believe. But the most comforting thing I can tell everybody on this call today is having someone with Catherine's background. And Catherine, it's against my better judgment to compliment anybody, because people know I sometimes say nice things about Josh or Wes or Michael, and I don't like doing that either. God knows don't want to feed people's heads. But in all seriousness, Catherine, I'm so happy you've joined. You know the business. Your reputation precedes itself. And I just want to let everybody know that I'm IR also, so I'm always ABC, always be closing. But so I think the stock is a gift at 30 cents. Catherine's going to straighten the show out. Catherine's going to, I think, make it right. She's got an incredibly strong grasp on the company. She knows how to run a business. She's got a stellar background. What we decided, Catherine and I would do, is the best thing to do is I've spoken to a lot of investors. Catherine and I have spoken several times. And I think we have a pretty good grasp between the two of us of what investors really to start. And we can have other webinars, which we will, and we're obviously here to talk to anybody that would like a one-on-one. Sure. But Catherine and I was nice enough to send me a kind of a priority list. And when we were talking earlier today about the call, and Catherine's, well, Neil, I don't know if it's the best thing for me to babble on for half an hour. I said, you know what? I went through these 5 points, Catherine, and I think they hit the nail on the head. So what I'd like to do, Catherine, is what we had talked about is I'm going to ask you each question.
Perfect.
You can comment on that. Again, at the end, we will open this up to Q&A. As Jennifer mentioned, we are recording the call. But first and foremost, again, thank you. My shoulders went down a little bit, Catherine, knowing someone of your stature, your commitment as well, your success in business.
Thank you.
Really, if it wasn't for somebody like you stepping in, I don't know what a lot of us would do, but I think you can change the game. And on that note, I just think on behalf of myself and a lot of shareholders, I think we're very grateful. One of our base shareholders, you're actually going to talk to next week. Couldn't make the call, but you know who he is because we just set that up.
Yep.
Was so also so thrilled to see you kind of stepping in to take over the reins. So I'm just going to lead right into this because we all have time constraints. And lastly, if we can't get to all the questions, do not worry. Either myself or more importantly, Catherine will answer them and we will either email them to you. So we try to keep be respectful of everybody's time. So for some reason we cannot get to all the questions, do not worry. Catherine will answer every question. On
Indeed.
that note, Catherine, I'm going to ask you the first question. Well, one, we talk about interim, and you've addressed that with me, and then two, we've talked about how Zefiro is your full-time focus, and maybe you can comment on the release, i.e. interim,
Sure.
how that's gonna phase out, and your focus as a full-time CEO, or how that will unfold over the next 1, 2, 3 years.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Neil, thank you so much for having me here. I think it's so important to address the questions head on. As you said, things have been challenging for Zefiro. And as a shareholder and as a board member, I think it's super important to get all this out on the table. And so, yes, I think, as people saw, presumably in the press release, I'm the interim CEO, but that is not any indication whatsoever about either my time commitment now. This is my full-time focus. I'm doing this because I believe wholeheartedly that we are poised for some really wonderful things at Zefiro, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot of hard work that has to happen first. So getting really clear on that work that needs to get done, that's what I'm here for. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't believe in it or if I wasn't ready to take it on. And so that's really what I'm doing here. And then as far as, how long is interim, it's as long as it needs to be to get things stabilized, getting things to the right place. And then, only when we find the right CEO to take it to the next level would I step away, but I'm fully committed to staying on even after that in whatever way is helpful for that next CEO, whether it's as a co-CEO, whether it's just staying on the board and supporting. Whatever is needed is what we're going to do because we really need to get this to the right place.
That's fantastic. And Catherine, one thing I'm just gonna, before I go into your second question, one thing that might be important, because I've obviously talked about how I know you through your background, and I'm lucky enough to work with Base and ABAC, so I have a pretty strong grasp. Maybe you could just take 2 minutes and just tell us a bit about your background, because you do some pretty serious stuff, and you're involved with some very, very high profile groups as well. So you're not just the director of these two companies. Maybe you
Right.
could just talk a little bit about your background,
Happy
just
to.
for 2 minutes. I should have asked that first probably, but
Sure.
maybe you
No
can
worries.
just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Happy to.
Because obviously you've got a background that's capable of executing as a CEO, and I just want people to understand that you're not just some board member.
That's right. Well, thank
You're
you. And
welcome.
I do appreciate that. And I spent about 30 years on Wall Street in various roles, but primarily running commodity sales and trading businesses. I was the CEO of JP Morgan's commodities business for Europe, Middle East, and Africa for a number of years. I ran BNP Paribas commodities, foreign exchange, and emerging market sales and trading business for the Americas. And I think that, in numerous points in my career, I've been in turnaround situations. I will say that although it can be challenging and unnerving, it is also something I enjoy, which is getting in and really digging into how do you take a business that has a lot of potential and turning it into something that actually is a success.
That was a great answer. And actually, it's funny because I didn't know a couple of those things either. So I guess I, I will not comment any further because that was quite good. So obviously got a diverse background, and part of that background, I'm assuming, because you mentioned commodities, of course,
Yeah,
involves energy,
that's right.
involves carbon credits, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was involved.
you know the business is my point.
Correct. Yes. Energy is the central focus of my career.
All right, I'm going to go on with question two, because one of the first things that you talked about, and this is to me the competence of a serious CEO, is you've talked about balance sheet, cap table, getting these things into good shape. So cost cutting, the balance sheet, and getting our cap table in good shape. Maybe you just want to say a few words on that, please.
Yeah, I think, everyone on this call has probably seen various press releases around either challenges that the company has had, targets that have been missed. Fundamentally, I think the role of a CEO is to make sure that the business has the fuel, which is really the capital needed for growth. Right now, the biggest challenge that we've had coming into this period is that there have been issues with that. And so I'm a pretty simple person, and my goal is decrease costs, increase revenue, therefore making this business as profitable as it can be. And then also recognizing that we've got a lot of debt on the balance sheet, and that needs to be fixed as well. And you know, and some other issues there as well. So this is what I am here to fix. That is the plan.
That is fantastic. So, and again, we all know that sometimes, you know, obviously say words like that. And you've also did indicate to me you've got a clear strategy on how you expect over the coming days, weeks, and months to correct these situations.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's
You have a pretty
also,
tight plan, it seems.
and I would say that, you know, we've already made material progress even just in this first month on cost cutting. That was really, really important to get that under control. And then we've seen already, like the announcement that went out recently around the large contract that we won, you know, nearly $20 million in the state of Ohio for well plugging. And you may have seen that there was a subsequent press release around a smaller contract in Ohio. Ohio was a new state for us. And so already we're beginning to see meaningful traction. I mean, $20 million for a company of our size is a big contract. And so that's important. So those are the building blocks. What we're doing here is building a solid foundation. If we have that, then we can continue to grow on top of that.
Okay. That's just and that I think that's really exciting because one of the things that everybody on this call knows, and I think one of the things or one of the reasons a lot of our shareholders, one of the reasons Catherine joined this board, Catherine's agreed to step in as CEO, is a scalable opportunity. I'm stepping outside your questions for a moment, Catherine.
Please do.
The dawn of it when I hear you talk about things that might be important to address.
Great.
One of the things I think you joined this board, stepped as CEO now, that we all bought the stock, everybody on this call, was when you have the federal government of the United States allocating $4.7 billion into 26 states, we have communities within kilometers, few miles, leaking methane into these communities, into that water table. We see a lot going on. The amount of money on the table is immense.
It is.
When I first got and looked, Catherine, and we talked about this briefly in Zefiro, I looked at competitors because Zefiro is such a small company, and you realize Schlumberger, Halliburton, the largest players in the oil servicing sector,
Right.
Catherine, are not as interested in this because they're very interested in oil services, oil drilling. These are
Right.
incredibly high margin. Nobody does it. They dominate that. So why would you mess around with something you already dominate? It created this amazing opportunity for someone like Zefiro to step in and grab literally hundreds of millions or billions of dollars potential revenue with very limited competition. And the great thing about governments is whatever they are, they pay.
They
So
do.
you don't have to worry about being stiffed on your bill, I guess. So maybe you can just touch on, because this also came out a bit. So one, you received, i.e. the Ohio contract, government contract. You're in 6 states. I believe they have federal funds allocated to 26. I'm assuming one, you'll move into more states, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. 2, there's been a lot of talk around buying the orphan wells because that appeared to me, and this is pre you being management, that you could plug the well that was leaking methane, cap, and obviously turn that methane into a carbon credit. And it seemed like the cost to buy that orphan well, plug it, and get the carbon credit, and of course the upside be selling that carbon credit, the margin on that would be quite high.
Mhm.
I guess we've got government, third-party independent, i.e. energy companies, oil companies that just want you to plug their wells, and then methane. I
Correct.
guess, would that be your key 3 revenue streams? Could you provide, because have you sold any carbon credits yet? But it seems to be
Yeah.
incredibly
Yep.
high margin. So could you
Yeah.
just give us maybe just a brief window? Because one thing I always like with companies, I don't like one-trick ponies.
Exactly.
Having these government sources, private company sources, and carbon credit sources of revenue is very attractive to me. Obviously, you've given some thought to how would that unfold? Is there a potential focus on how Are you going to focus more on one, two, or three, or all three evenly? Maybe you could just provide some perspective on revenue growth on the three priority revenue streams.
So there's a lot to unpack in all of that. But I love that you use the word focus, because to me, that is the name of the game of where we are right now. Focus is so important. And you're right, there's three revenue streams. The history of this business. So again, remember that Zefiro is a few years old, but one of the acquisitions that we made at Zefiro is a company called Plants and Goodwin, which has been in business for about 60 years. And Plants and Goodwin, the vast majority of their business historically was in that corporate dealing with the energy companies. That was the vast majority of the revenue stream. It's still a very important part of the revenue stream. Responsible energy companies that are creditworthy, which is the only ones we deal with in that space, have a responsibility to plug their wells. And those highly rated energy companies, they do that. And they contract out to people like Zefiro because we have a track record, because we know the quality of our work is excellent. And the other thing that's important and maybe somewhat overlooked is in an industry that has historically been a lot of mom and pop type businesses, and no disrespect to them, but there are a lot of pieces to plugging a well. So not to get into the engineering of it, but in addition to all of the rigs and the expertise to actually plug the well, you also need the ability to do the cementing. You need the ability to do the wire line, which in some cases involves explosives. There's a lot of pieces to it, and most companies don't have all the pieces. They have to subcontract out to others. Zefiro has all the pieces. So that, first of all, means that we can control the quality, and it means that we also can have a much better handle on the costs of what we're doing. So that's really important, and that's why we're a preferred vendor for many of these household name type oil and gas companies. That's not going to stop. The other big piece, as you mentioned, is the government contracts. So coming into 2025, part of the reason that we've had softness in the revenue side of our business was that with the change in administration, there was a question that both at the federal and the state levels, is this going to persist? Are these dollars, you mentioned over $4 billion being allocated to this, will this persist? And the answer now we know is absolutely. And so this is one of the very rare bipartisan issues where both the right and the left recognize that nobody needs to breathe methane. And so it's an important issue for everyone. It's one that the energy companies support and the environmentalists support. And so for something like that, governments continue to disperse the funds. So in the states in which we currently operate, $700 million has been now firmly allocated to this particular endeavor. So
To
far,
the 6 days, to the 6 days.
that's right. So exactly. So far,
And you've grabbed how much of that? Like what, 60 mil, 80 mil?
we're about 25% of what has
Okay.
been, they do it in tranches. So we're about 25%
No, I know. Okay.
success
But
rate in what we've done. So we're very excited about that. And now, we have our eye on other states to move into, and there's about another $700 million in the near term ambition of the states that we're going to. So we're very, very excited about that and continuing to build. And again, already seeing that success in the contract that we announced that is great for us. Now, that third pillar, the carbon credit pillar, is important. Now, when I talk about this, the way I think about it is the first two pieces of business, the corporate and the government business, that's the meat and potatoes. That's the real big dollar right here, right now. Let's get after that. Carbon credits is important, and it is going to be a growing part of our business. I think about it right now as more of like the icing on the cake. And it's going to grow into its own, part of the meal relatively quickly. But right now we're still at the icing on the cake stage. But as you said, we've sold carbon credits. We've got more to come. And so we're very excited about that part of the business. And it's important, not only because it's a good revenue stream and has promise, but it's also important because $4 billion being allocated from the federal government is just a drop in the bucket for the many, many multiples of that is the true cost of remediating all of these wells that need to be plugged. So we have to find
Right.
other
So
ways,
that's right. But they're not even denting the problem.
not even denting it. And so that's the thing. And so
So if you spend the whole you, whatever other companies, it's tens of billions probably, if not,
if
it's
not,
a
if not
stupid
even
number,
more.
is it not, Catherine?
Correct. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Estimates are, many multiples of that actually. And so having a private sector solution, which is what carbon credits are, it's the market paying for the abatement of methane, is an important arrow in the quiver to solve this problem.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. You've done your homework, obviously. So I'm going to touch up. We're going to open up some questions shortly. And again, Catherine, thank you for your time. I know how busy a person you are, and
I'm
just so you know,
delighted.
when we talked about this, by the way, it wasn't even a question. I think Catherine might have called and yelled at me if I wouldn't have said something like this or suggested it, because she realized this shareholder support is so important. So
Totally.
I do appreciate that. I think just we'll open up the questions too, because there are a few questions. Um, you commented again, and I think you've already addressed this. Maybe you can just summarize. I think the summary of what your priorities are and I won't use the word interim CEO. We're not going to release that, by the way, anybody. Catherine will stay on the CEO as long as it takes, as she had mentioned. And if the right transition comes in, she'll bring in the right man or woman, person, and will likely probably still stay on anyways as an active, over and above board member participant to build the business, because I think you see the opportunity, which is why you're here with us right now and spending your time. So I
100%.
think the summary: cost cutting, revenue growth.
Yep,
I think are the two biggest priorities, correct?
that is correct.
So cut our costs, grow revenues. And lastly, and this came up, when previous, I'll use your terminology, Catherine, the previous administration was elected.
Mhm.
Part of this company's mandate was growth organically through, again, growth through private, public, and carbon credit revenue streams, but also growth through acquisition. I know the company had identified numerous acquisitions.
Mhm.
Subsequently, fast forward, you've now stepped in. I've been hearing scuttlebutt, Catherine, of say anywhere from 3 to 6 to 10 acquisitions that again were very synergistic to Zefiro's growth strategy. And as such, I'm assuming you're still talking to some of those acquisitions. I know you're unlikely to raise capital at the current price, but so I'm assuming the focus right now is just organic growth. But can you tell me a little bit? Because I do know for a fact that Talal and the other guys had spoken to at least 4, 8, 9 different companies that were strategically good fits and acquisition opportunities. Can you just discuss a little bit about, are those on the table? Is there still interest for you to grow through acquisitions? How does that strategy look to you?
We're not taking anything off the table in terms of how we can grow. My focus is on being as methodical as possible and again, creating that foundation from which to build. There will be opportunities to grow organically. There will be opportunities to grow through various types of acquisitions. Definitely not taking anything off the table, but in the very near term, we need to get our house in order. And that's the primary focus. But between now and even the end of this year, we have a lot of opportunities, and we're going to not disregard or not dismiss any of those that could be accretive to the company and to our shareholders.
I'm a mute. I'm going to address a couple things here. I'm
Sure.
looking at some of the stuff in the chat room. And I appreciate, by the way, you know what I love about these comments is some of them are pretty honest. Well,
Great.
at least whoever these people are, and I don't know some of these people, they're speaking from the mind.
Yeah,
I'm going to summarize a couple of them for you to comment on, because
sure.
you and I have talked about this. And by the way, guys, I'm a shareholder. Like, if you don't think I was upset, and not only am I a shareholder, who do you think gets ragged on daily when things like, stock goes down to 10 cents, now it's sitting at 30 cents. So I'm just going to comment on a couple of things, Catherine, for you to
Please.
comment on, because Catherine, I do believe transparency, honesty is the best way to go.
Totally
So
agree.
one, what happened to Lal Debs? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Catherine comment on that too. I'm gonna read you something here because I want everyone to hear this, and I'm sure you see this on chat. These Zooms are just fluff and have been since day one, always talking about who's coming in and what they did in the past, ego strokes. To be honest, nobody cares about anything other than why the stock prices failed. Now, Paul, that's a great comment. I appreciate your honesty.
Yep.
Um,
Me too.
you're right. Nobody cares about it. But you know what? Who happens? I would use a more blunt term, but I've been doing this 21 years, Paul, and I can tell you right now, stuff happens. And you know what? God bless you, Catherine, for stepping up to the table, because I can tell you right now, a lot of these things, by the way, Paul, I don't get out of them. I've had a few, I have wallpaper now. How's that? So yes, these are not fluff. Catherine's a very, very credible person. We spent 21 years at Investor Cube trying to be real, not to do fluffy little Zoom calls and stroke a bunch of egos. Everything I said about Catherine Flax, she deserves. I give you people 10 times my peer and her peer that will validate this woman's credibility. We're lucky enough that she's taken the time and effort, because she could have walked. I could have walked. Everybody could have walked here. Stocks down the drain. Again, I love you said that, because it really excited me to hear that, because I love people that speak their minds, and thank you for that. But do appreciate nobody's here to stroke egos. Nobody's here to do anything. I want to make money. You're right. The stock has failed. Catherine drives value. It's not about the stock price. It is, but it's not. It's valuation in terms of revenue growth, margins, EBITDA, earnings growth, and credibility. And these are things that she will focus on, and things that I've known for 5 years, she has successfully done. And if you go back further, of course, to your background, you have also done. So I'm not here to stroke egos. I'm here and I do this to make money. Catherine is as beautiful as a woman as you are. Catherine's here to make a living. So I just want you to, one, the previous comment was from another man saying, what happens with Lal? Two, we're not here to be fluff. I'm not here to waste my time. Catherine has no time to waste. And maybe Catherine, you want to just talk a little bit about the
Sure. And look, I'd like to
stuff that
say
happened. But we do appreciate the comment, Paul, and
well,
I
that's the
hope
thing.
maybe honesty will change your mind on this call.
I really, really actually do appreciate the candor and the question. And I'm a shareholder too. And if there weren't angry shareholders on this call and in this world, that would be remarkable. Why would you not be? And I totally get that. And so like I'm glad to have the direct question so we can have a direct answer. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think that there was the potential to get it right. If I thought this wasn't going to turn around, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I also don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, because I think, unfortunately, that's been a bit of the history that's happened in this business, even unintentionally, right? I mean, as I mentioned before, there were government contract, the expectation of government dollars coming in that was slowed over the course of the year. Doesn't matter. Those are excuses, right? And we can't live in the world of excuses right now. We have to live in the world of what are we going to do now? And so that's where cutting costs is super important. Having the team just laser focused, not spending time on anything that doesn't have to do with getting dollars in the door. So like that's what we actually have to do. So absolutely, totally get that. And look, the proof is going to be in the pudding. I'm not going to sit here and tell you anyway, I can't, make projections and whatever that isn't in the public domain, and I'm not going to. We're going to look at how the performance is going to be this quarter, next quarter, the quarter after. And if it is what I think our team can get to, then we're going to be in a different place, right? And so that's the whole reason for rolling up our sleeves and trying to get out there and do this. So, but I appreciate the question, because of course you're angry. I am too. So I completely get that. So now, the question is, what happened to Talal? Well, I think that for a number of things. One is the performance not having been the way that we all wanted it to be. And then the second thing, like there's some things in the public domain that you've already seen. Like, there was the failure to pay notice that happened whenever that was, 5 or 6 weeks ago. On the one hand, it wasn't fatal. We were able to get it solved, and put that to bed and move on. But those aren't happy moments in the course of a company, and that does cause that, combined with overall performance, causes a board to get together and say, do we need to make a change? And that's not, being slamming somebody else. It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback and say, well, this person should have done this and should have done that. The question is, what are we going to do now? And so really it's about focus, and it's about getting just down to that nitty gritty of, as I said, cutting costs, raising revenue. And so then the question was, who's best situated to do that? I'm honored that they asked me to do it. Now it's up to me and the team, we have an awesome team, to actually, put our money where our mouth is, and make it work. So that's what we're doing. It's a lot of blocking and tackling every day. And we're doing our best.
I agree. I agree. I'm going to move on to a couple of very interesting questions. As a matter of fact, a close friend, a large investor, do you have the financial resources to run the business?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we do. And so it's a question of run the business, to do what? And so, right. And so, yes, we have what we need today to do what we need to do. And that's why, though, we have plans for, next quarter and beyond to do more. And so, I don't want to answer like I'm super satisfied with, obviously not, right? I mean, I'm obviously not satisfied with where we are, but we have what we need today. And we're building towards having more so we can do more tomorrow.
I think, Catherine, the real question is, you're not doing a raise right now. I get,
I think-
you know what? I don't know if you can comment on that. That could be
Yeah.
a question. I don't, don't comment on that. The business is fine financially right now, correct? I would assume, like any business, and that could be an Abex or a base, well, maybe not base, but Abex. If someone gave an extra $20 million, you could like really go to town. But the point is, the company is in okay financial shape. You're not desperate for money tomorrow.
That is the point.
Is that a fair comment?
I think that's fair.
Okay. Another interesting question came is, are you basically going to expand internationally? There's a lot of abandoned orphan wells worldwide. Carbon market methodology for international projects is coming too. So what are your thoughts on international expansion?
So absolutely. Again, it's a staging matter, right? Because we have to focus and get the building. North America is an obvious place, just given geographic proximity, and the amount of wells in, beyond the United States. But I will comment that our chief commercial officer is now domiciled in Dubai. And there's a variety of reasons for that, but part of it is international potential.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Catherine, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And by the way, you know what? And this is gonna go from everybody on this call. Some were nasty, some weren't so nice. But honesty is the best policy. And if whatever you're
100%.
thinking, and you can believe that or not, but I think Catherine and I both are on the same page. But it's good, better, and different. If you don't like what we're doing, whether we're fluff, whatever you may think, we'd rather at least get an honest answer from you, because we're going to try and give you an honest answer back. So I'm going to leave it on a summary on this note. Money talks, and you know what takes the bus. Catherine's committed. She's now joined this company's interim CEO. She's going to fall through this over the next 1, 2, 3 quarters. Got to give her a little bit of time. At least be a bit patient, let her get her ducks in a row. I think you've already made tremendous progress in terms of cost cutting. Obviously, you saw the 2 announcements. I mean, you're basically weren't even the chair calf in a month, and we saw over $20 million in contracts signed. That was, I was shocked myself, because I just thought everything was kind of on hold. That then to see a $20 million contract in Ohio was pretty, maybe a lot happier. So time will tell, but I don't think you have to wait that long. As again, the fluff car salesman RI guy, I'll stick with that, Paul, by the way, for a long time now. I think the stock is a buy here. It is risky. We are high risk, small cap, micro cap investors. I've invested with people, a fraction of Catherine's intelligence, but great people build great companies. I can validate that, not through my personal knowledge of Catherine, but I can validate that because I am pretty damn close to Josh Crum, and you know that. And he's built an incredible company. I'm very close to Pace. You're involved directly from day one with both those companies. You've been an instrumental part of both those companies. I know that not from you, but I know that from them. So again, fluff or not, I have a lot of faith. I thank God and thank you for stepping in to take this initiative, because I might have walked, guys. I don't know. I'm just trying to be honest myself, but I don't know if I could have stayed involved with all the stuff that went down. It was a great white knight day in my life to see Catherine, you step in. So on that note, I'll let everybody go. There's some other questions I see. I'm going to make sure you guys get answered. Catherine has another very important meeting coming up, but time will tell. And respect and credit has to be given where respect and credit is due. And you've earned that over, I was going to say decades, but it might, she started when she was 10. So that's where I will be the car salesman guy, but you have earned the respect that is deserving of the street that you can execute on this business plan. So please reach out to us if you want or need anything. If not, Catherine, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to this call. As the quarters come out, Catherine's been emphatically and clear to Investor Cube. She wants to continue to do webinars. So as things happen, and two, if there are individual calls, they get on the phone 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, have a one-on-one, email Jennifer or email myself, and we'd be happy to have those calls with you to address any of those concerns. One great question just came up. I just caught, and then also I know him very well. And you just one last comment, then I'll let everybody go.
You got it.
God, I love you, Jerome. Given your capital constraints, why are you considering to expand into new states rather than first generating some profits and cash flows in the existing 6 states?
It's a question of how. It's a very good question.
I thought so. I like that.
No, it's a question of staging. And so as it has happened, we begin to look at new states. If there's business, the business has to precede the actual movement into that. And so there are ways in which, if there's a new contract that the government is putting out, for instance, that we can bid on and win, and we can mobilize resources that we already have, not new ones, to those states, then that's the way to leg into it. So there are ways to potentially do that. But going back to what I said before about focus, we're very much about right now maximizing what we can do with the resources that we have. And so, yes, continuing to grow in the states where we are is step one for sure.
All right. Thank you, Catherine, for that. So I think the idea is that, yes, so I think, Jerome, your point is you'll focus on the 6 days, but obviously you never, as I guess any company would, you're never going to lose sight of exploring opportunity.
Right, because these
opportunities based on your resources,
absolutely,
your existing resources,
right,
not adding additional capital expenditures or expense. If you get into a 7th state and grab a great contract, why wouldn't you?
That's right.
So it really doesn't matter. So, and thank you for that, Jerome. I'm excited. I am. It's not fluff. It's real. You're real. We've got a great history. Going to build something great here. Buy, don't buy. Everybody should do what's comfortable on their own investment objectives, their own risk tolerance. And again, whether they think that we're BS or we're not BS. So on that note, I'll let you go. We're going to edit the call, put it up for put up the recording so you can listen to it again and again. And we typically just stick to Catherine's presentation on that recording. So anyways, Catherine, thank you very much. I'll let you go. Have a great day. And again, any other questions, any other information, please feel free to call me.